This is Lead 1212, a podcast on Christ-centered leadership based on Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. Thanks for listening. Now here's Chris and Dave.
Hey everybody, we are here with Michelle Prince. She is Zig Ziglar's ambassador. She is a published author. She is a mother. She is a wife, and we are just so happy to have her here. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Fantastic. I know we've been working on this a long time, and I'm just so glad to have you here. I've been looking forward to this. Michelle, can you share with everyone your salvation story?
Oh, I'd love to. As with most people, I'm sure it's a long journey and how I am where I am today. But actually, mine started really young. I was 7 years old. I can remember the moment like it was yesterday. But I had the moment where I met Jesus is how I put it. I was in a Catholic school actually at the time, and we were talking about how Jesus is always near, and I just had this moment of clarity, and I invited him to come and sit with me, and it was this crazy moment where and it's hard to explain it now as an adult, but that was the first time that I actually had acknowledgement or understanding of who Jesus was and who he was in my life, and I felt like he was with me throughout my life. But what's really interesting is I didn't know what I didn't know for most of my adult life.
Sure.
And I actually had a more relationship building experience with my salvation about 15 years ago. And it's a longer story that I won't get into, but my love for Jesus, my love for God, my commitment to my faith has been there since I was 7. But my understanding of my relationship didn't really go deeper until, like I said, about 15 years ago.
I see. Wow.
Yeah. And it's evolving. I feel like I've changed so much in so many different ways, but God has just really opened my eyes to so many things. And I've learned things at such a rapid rate, and I have understanding of things that I just didn't have when I was younger. And God's been working on me for a long time, and I'm finally listening and trying to just take it all in and absorb it as much as I can to really understand his will for my life.
That's beautiful. I know I'm a work in progress, and I will always be a work in progress.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can't say we don't have it figured out. It's
Right.
so far from it, but
That's
every day is a good day though.
It's interesting because Jesus was all about relationship. He was never about religion. And the best relationships go on forever. If you can keep a best friend from childhood on, that's your person.
Yes. And that's exactly how I felt and sometimes it's hard to explain it because some people say, were you really Christian? Or if you didn't understand, but I did. And I had this moment, and it's like my whole life, I always knew Jesus was by my side. And
Amen.
I just knew it. I knew it. And I could feel it and sense it, even without my understanding fully of what I didn't know. But that's how God works. He has protected me. He has favored me and my family. He has given me so much. And so when 15 years ago, I went through a Bible study, I really didn't study the Bible when I was young the way that I do today. And so I remember going through this Bible study, and it was just the most eye-opening, like, why didn't I ever see that before? Or how come I didn't understand that before? And I actually had somebody prophesy over me on an airplane one time. It was a strange experience. And they said to me that my faith was about to radically change, and my understanding of it is going to just grow rapidly. And it did. And it was in that moment from, like I said, that was about 15 years ago to today. I mean, I still have so much to learn, but the journey is just so much different and better. And yeah.
That's an amazing story.
Thank you.
So I'm dying to ask you this. Tell me about what it was like working with Zig.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Just incredible. I don't know. There's no other word to describe it. I met Zig when I was 18.
Wow.
And funny enough, I just graduated from high school, and my mom and dad sent me and my brother to his Born to Win conference, thinking we'd be thrilled about it. And I went kicking and screaming. I did. I was like, I don't want to go to a seminar, especially not a motivational seminar. I'm 18. I have an 18-year-old. I know he feels the same way. But it changed my life. And I walked up to Zig at the end of the conference, and not thinking beyond what was just the words at the moment, but I just knew I just loved everything about him and the seminar. And I said, I'm going to work for you one day. You just wait and see. And I went off to college, and it was almost 5 years to the day that I started working for him. And it was such a God thing because
Wow.
I didn't even remember that I said that until I was in my first job after college, cold calling on businesses. And I accidentally, we know there's no accident, cold called on the Zig Ziglar Corporation, which I didn't even know was in Dallas. And that's when it just that light bulb of, oh my gosh, that's right. I'm supposed to work here. And I ran
Amazing.
in and I applied for a job and I got it. And that's how I started. But that was when I was 23 years old. That's where it all began. And so working with him, being around somebody with so much integrity and so much, I didn't know any different. I didn't have another conception of
I
corporate
see.
America as much as I did there. So
Sure.
to see him and his love for people, his love for Jesus,
Wow.
he changed my life. And he didn't even know, I didn't even know how he was shaping me at that stage because I wasn't the Christian I am today
I see.
that I was then.
Sure. I listened to his stuff, I think I want to say in the early 90s. And my gosh, he had such an impact on me. So I can imagine working with him.
Oh my gosh. It's funny because people ask that question a lot, and he's such a bigger than life man and
Yes.
he's great on stage. And I always say he was actually better behind closed doors.
Wow.
Truly. It was never about him. It was never ego. His only motivation in everything he did was to serve God and help other people. And it came out in every
Amen.
conversation. Yeah, it was extraordinary. And in looking back now as an adult, I'm so incredibly grateful. And I was so blessed to have that opportunity. And which is what makes it so much more special now that, and it's a long story how I got here, but I now, when I speak or when I do podcasts or when I write my books, every bit of my story is around Zig because that is the beginning of my transformation. And so now to be on the other end and to help keep his legacy alive is just, it's just so incredible.
That's wonderful. I can imagine. Yeah. I can imagine in my mind what it's like, but I'm sure experience it was so much better. That's just incredible. Tell us about the books that you've written.
I've written several books. The first one was called Winning in Life Now, How to Break Through to a Happier You. And Zig actually was gracious enough to write the foreword. But that was a book I never intended for anyone to read but my family.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, Famous last words. That is literally how my business started because I just wrote this book because I felt, truth be told, I felt like I was telling me to tell my story. And I thought, well, you know what? If I write it just for my boys, it'll be okay. And then it took off. But my second book was called Busy Being Busy, but Getting Nothing Done.
Wonderful.
And it was just all about how to juggle everything that we juggle in life. And then my last several books have been all about story. I help people to tell their story. One of the books is called Your Book is Your Business Card. The next book is called The Power of Authority, which is a play on words. You can't spell authority without author.
Oh,
And the
cool.
book that hasn't published yet, but is closest to my heart than any of them, is called Shine Through Your Story. And it is really more about that God's given us our story, and it's a gift, and
Amen.
gifts are meant to be shared.
Amen. Note to our listeners, we're going to put a link to all of those books in the podcast notes. That is wonderful. And I can't wait to see your new book.
Thank you. It's taken me a little longer than it should,
Oh,
but
especially during COVID, I'm sure that had an impact on everything.
yes, but all in due time.
I can't actually wait to read the unpublished book because a person's story is so important, not just to them, but to other people. But also it allows them to reflect on feedback they get when they actually share that they're maybe not the worst, they're not the best, they're not alone.
That's what it boils down to. Makes our story is what it gives people hope. If somebody can know, wow, he went through that or she went through that, and look at where they are now, good or bad. We all have parts of our story that were wonderful and awesome that we want to talk about, and then we all have parts of our story that are dark and maybe we've been through things such as divorce or abuse or bankruptcy or things that maybe we don't want to talk about. But when we do and we share it and say, hey, I've been there, it gives people hope. And I just think that when you think of your story, even the parts that we're afraid to talk about, you can't change your story. And God's given it to you for a
Amen.
reason. And it's usually to inspire and give hope and inspiration to somebody else.
Amen.
And I think we learn the best through stories. The best example of who did this better than anyone is Jesus. Jesus told stories. but where I go beyond that is it's not just about knowing your story and sharing it with a girlfriend or a friend over coffee. It's when we document our stories. I think that's when we have the potential to make the biggest impact. And again, the apostles had to document it for us to all be sitting here today with the hope we have. It's just an opportunity for us to what is God doing in your life? And how has that helped you? And how could you share that to help someone else?
That is so fascinating. I've never thought of it that way. You're exactly right. Our story our testimony is so important. That's amazing.
Yeah. And the authenticity of it too. When I think back to the people that have changed my life in dark times, I think about somebody who came alongside and said, you know what, I've been there and you're going to get through this. And let me tell you how. And I think it's our responsibility in a way to share our story,
Amen.
to give hope. And we wouldn't withhold it to a friend or a family member if we were in front of somebody. So just think of the potential that you could have if you shared that on a bigger scale.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Wonderful.
And impact someone you don't know.
So true. So do you have a favorite story of Zig you can share with us?
Oh my goodness. I have so many. Yes. Okay. This one, it just shows, it's more testament to his character. So when I was there in 1994, 95, 96, somewhere in that range, I was there for about 4 years. And we had about 80 people in the company at the time. So it was a pretty big company. Yeah. With the warehouse, we had, sales, we had management, all of that. I was in sales for Zig. And this is before cell phones, by the way, or right around the time that not everybody had them. Christmas morning, every year, you would get a phone call from Zig personally. He called every single person in the company.
Wow.
Yeah. I still get choked up thinking about it because who does this? And would call him up, and if Zig's voice, Michelle, and he would just say, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate you. I couldn't do this without you. He did this for everyone, no matter what their role was. And it was I just remember feeling, and he would, that was Sunday or Christmas morning. So he was walking away from his grandchildren, his children, his own family celebration to go call each one of us.
My goodness.
Who does that?
No.
And so that's one of them. But actually, one other, if I can tell one more.
Sure.
Again, when I worked there were so many of us. And so when I tell you these stories, he treated everyone like this. I wasn't any different, but he just made you feel like you were the most important person in the room.
Wow.
And he would walk around the office, and we were all in cubicles. And I remember him coming in my cubicle many times, and he'd say, Michelle, is that boy still treating you? And he was talking about my then boyfriend, Chris, who is my now husband of almost 25 years. And he's the moment he doesn't treat you, you let me know. I just remember being like, yes, Mr. Ziglar.
Oh my gosh. These stories are amazing. And they really emphasize that Zig truly was the man he presented himself on the cassettes and the videos and everything else. Boy, cassettes, that's been a long time ago, hasn't it?
Yes. I still have all my cassettes though. I don't have anything to play them on.
Yeah. So we've got one more question for you, and then we'll let you go. What is your biggest praise for God?
Oh, goodness. Now you make me really cry. He's so faithful. So faithful. And I've seen it in generations of my family, and it's so undeserved. But yet he's so faithful. And just this goodness and my family. Whew. And he's part of every moment and every detail if we stop and we listen. And I'm so grateful that God speaks to me. He speaks to you. He speaks to all of us.
Amen.
And we all have the power to hear his voice. But that's how much he loves us and the relationship he wants with us. So it's just so faithful.
That is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here with us. You've been a fantastic guest. Again, this is Michelle Prince. Check out her books. She does a wonderful job with this. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
This is an LBS production, which stands for pounds. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it also stands for laughing because we're saved. But we kind of like the pounds. So Chris will lift them and I will gain them, and we will have a great time. Thanks for listening.